Hi, this is Greg Hughes from 90-Second Website Builder. In this video, I'm going to cover an introduction to the Content Management System tools, or CMS tools. These tools are found in your toolbox down here toward the bottom under Content Management System, and there are 5 of them that all do different things. What's a content management system? A content management system, or a CMS, is an area of your website where you can go to the website online and add content, basically. Now, the CMS tools in 90-Second Website Builder are vast, meaning you can design just about anything you can imagine, but they are slightly more advanced. There are some complexity to them because they're so powerful. So this video is just going to be an introduction to the CMS tools, or the content management system, in 90-Second Website Builder. There are some preliminary things we're going to need to get started, and I'll talk to you about those, and then we're going to set up a simple CMS website, and then from there you can build on that. And then in future CMS videos we'll get into more specific details and maybe some more advanced things. But again, this is an overview or an introduction to CMS. The best way to use the CMS tools in 90-Second Website Builder is to go ahead and use the template that's already set up for you as a CMS demo. In fact, if you go to File, New Website from Template, and you change the category in the templates to Demo, you'll see that there is a Demo CMS template. All you'll need to do is select that, click OK, and then name this new project something. Now that's going to save the original CMS demo template, and you're going to be making a copy of that under your own name. So call it something like My CMS or whatever you want to call it, and then click Save. Once you do that, you'll end up with something that looks like my screen now. And this is just, again, not only a demonstration template, but it's also filled with some instructions on CMS, and so I'll talk to you about some of those. This particular template has several pages. I'm going to move to the Site Manager so you can see them. The index page, which of course we're looking at now, which just gives us some general information about CMS. And then there's some more information on a Getting Started page, and I'll talk to you about this in a second. And then the actual CMS part of the website is on these two pages. There's one called Administrator, where we actually have a CMS object right here called CMS Admin, and that's the tool called CMS Admin you'll see in the toolbox. And then the actual content itself is on this page, and there's some demonstration fields here. Now this master page right here is just, again, this is just for demonstration purposes. You don't have to have this. This is the page that has this sort of layout and these boxes and shapes, and if you don't want to use these, you don't have to. Obviously you're going to want to redesign your own, but this is just something to get you started. But this is just basically the background of the page to give it a little bit of style, and these are all editable, and you can do whatever you want with these. Okay, so let's go back to the index page and start from the beginning. Like I said, CMS stands for Content Management System, and so this page is going to describe to you a little bit of an overview. If you want to read that, you can. Probably more important is for you to see the Getting Started page, because in order for you to use CMS, you're going to have a web service, a web hosting account that supports both PHP and MySQL. Now, 99% of web hosts do, so you probably have that kind of hosting account. If you don't, check with your host and see. If you're using Blackwire hosting, you absolutely have PHP, MySQL. One of the first things you're going to need to do before you can use a content management system is you're going to need to create a MySQL database on your server. Now, this is not something you do in 90-Second Website Builder. This is something you do at your host. And you will log into your control panel or your cPanel, and you would create that database. If you're using Blackwire hosting, you can actually see how that's done by going to the Blackwire hosting website and looking at the videos. In fact, on the video library page at Blackwire hosting, there's a video called How to Create a MySQL Database in cPanel. And if you just watch that video, it will show you how to do that. In fact, whether you're using Blackwire or not, as long as your host provides cPanel, you can use this same video tutorial to see how an SQL database is set up. I'm not going to go through that in this video since there's already one you can go watch. I'm going to assume that you either know how to do that or you will get instructions on doing that elsewhere. The first thing you'll need is that, because we're going to have to put our MySQL database information inside these objects. So let's go to the administrator page where it all begins. I'm going to move the camera down a little bit so we can see a little better what's happening here. So this is an object called CMS Admin. It was created by this tool right here. CMS Admin is where you administrate your content for your content management system. So in other words, you'll log in as an administrator and utilize the CMS from this page. I'm going to double click on this object and show you how it's set up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a password for the admin, which is, it defaults to password. Again, you're going to want to change that to something more sensible or something more secure, so I'll leave that up to you. And then you can create a username here if you want to. I'll just use my name as the username. Then we're going to look at our MySQL setup. Now, when you go to create your MySQL database on your host, you're going to end up with 4 things that you need to know. The name of the database you created, the name of the password for that database, the server name, which in almost every case is going to be the same for everyone. You're also going to need to know your MySQL username. That's the information you'll get from your host. Again, I'm not going to go through that here. I'm going to assume you have that, but I'll show you what it might look like. In fact, I'm going to put in mine because I've already set up a database on the account that I'm going to publish this website to. So I'm going to type in my settings. Now let me talk to you a little bit about these settings. The MySQL database name. This is something that I made up in my control panel at my hosting account. The first part of it is actually the username of that web hosting account, and then an underscore, and then whatever I wanted to call this database. But both of these together make up the entire database name. This is usually the naming conventions for most MySQL databases, and again, your host will need to help you with this information. The password that I created for this username and database, also the name of the server. Now, most of the time, this is going to be called localhost, all one word, all lowercase. There are some cases where you'll use a different name, IP address, or whatever. That would be more of an advanced usage. In most cases, in fact, I'll say 99.9% of the time, you're going to put in the word localhost, meaning the server that you're connecting to is local to where the website is. Obviously, you're going to store the website on the same server as MySQL. The table prefix, it doesn't really matter. That's something that the software is going to take care of behind the scenes. You don't need to know that. If you want to change this, you can. I recommend leaving it. And then this username, again, just like the database name, I chose this suffix CMS user, something I made up in my control panel. And then the info web is the username of the account. So without going into detail, again, you would get these 4 things from your host. You would leave the table prefix if you want to, just like that. And then you're set up. So we've now changed the admin appropriately. We gave it a password and we set it up to connect to the MySQL database that's already set up in my control panel. Okay, I'm going to click OK and save that. We have to do that in one other spot, and that's where our content is going to show. So I'm going to click on the content page and bring that up. This box out here was created with the tool called CMS View. That's this tool over here in the toolbox. And this is where we're going to view the content that we create. But this content also needs to be connected to the database. So I'm going to double click on it and bring up these properties. Again, we're going to put in the same information we did before. So this is the same information that was in the admin, the name of the server, again, localhost for almost everyone, the name that I invented, along with the prefix of my account, etc. Okay, once this is done, we're going to click OK. So now we're basically ready to connect. Once we publish this, we can connect to the database and store information. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about some of these other fields here. These are just text objects that are explaining to you what you're looking at because this is a demo. And so this template is actually also teaching you. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and leave these. You wouldn't leave these because this is telling you what you're doing, but you would want to get rid of these pieces of text and these arrows. But for now, because we're learning, I'm going to leave those in place and talk about some of these other objects. You can see up here, this is also a content management system tool. And this particular object is called a CMS search because we can search our content. And so that's this tool right here. I'm going to double click on this and you can see that it's been set up already with this style. It's kind of got a rounded corner. You don't have to leave it this way. You can make it look however you want again. But basically, this is the object that can search the content. It's very simple. You don't have to do much except change the look of it. So we'll leave that. Here's another object right here. Now this is called a CMS label. That's this tool right here. CMS Labels, very versatile. In this case, we're using the CMS label to show the name of our content. I'm going to double click on this and show you how this is set up. A CMS label can do a number of things. In this case, it's going to show the name of the content. It could also show some other data, which we'll use labels for elsewhere. But in this case, we're just going to have it display the content name. Click OK. Over here, we're using a CMS tool called the CMS Menu. And what that does is that's going to display a menu of all of our content. Think of our content as articles or whatever kind of content we want to store. It's going to store it in the form of a menu. This will be a clickable menu. If we double click on this, you can see that you can change the style of it, how it looks, and you can even make it be search engine friendly if you click on this button here. So here's where you would change the style and how this operates. Now, most of this is going to make more sense to you once we publish it, so if you're a little bit lost, don't worry about it. It'll make more sense here in a few minutes. We have some more objects. Down here is another label. This is a CMS label that instead of showing the name like we use up here, we're using this CMS label to show when the content was last modified, the date it was modified, and so we've used the label for that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and leave that. I'm going to go ahead and publish this, even though we haven't made any changes, except we've connected it to our MySQL database. In the real world, I would redesign this. Obviously, you're going to want to change this to say whatever you want it to say. You would go to the master page template and you can edit this. In fact, I'm going to actually store this on a website called infoontheweb.com. So here's where I would change that. You don't have to. Just for the sake of clarity, I'll do that now so it doesn't get too confusing. I'm actually using a domain infoontheweb.com just for this demonstration. So I just edited the master page. Let me move the camera. This is the page that I'm editing right here, the master page. And so let's move the camera back so we can see. Okay, so here's our content page again. All we did was we connected our CMS View to the database. Here's our administrator, and we connected that to the database. This is just some instruction information. We don't need to publish this, but for the demonstration, I'll go ahead and publish everything. So to publish, I'm going to go up to my Publish button and click Publish. And I've actually created a location for this. So let me go find that location here called infoontheweb.com. So what I'm doing is I'm actually storing this CMS content inside a folder called CMS. I went to my info on the web domain and I created a directory called CMS, and that's where I'm going to upload this, and so that's what I called it. And I set that up here in the location settings, as you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and publish the entire website and all of the files. And we'll click Publish and wait for it to do that. It gives you a report of what it's doing. In this case, it's going to publish about 19 files. And so we'll wait for that. Now, again, I'm just publishing the template. You're obviously going to want to redesign it and make it look the way you want it to look. So it's done publishing. I can close out of this and go to my browser, or here's a nice little trick. You can just click right here and go directly to the link that I created inside my publish settings, which is infoontheweb.com/CMS. So let's click on here. And that's where we're going to go. We're at infoontheweb.com/CMS. And of course, it defaults to the index page, and so it took us there. Now, I'm going to go to my administrator page because that's really what matters. Clicking on administrator, and you can see that we have our login. And remember, I left that as password. Not a good idea. Make sure you create a better password than what I did. And now we're logged into our content management system. Now, what you're seeing here is an article that I had already put in here before I started the video for the sake of this demonstration, so I have something to show you. I'm going to make a new page as well here in just a second so you can see how this was created. So this little administration panel basically gives me a little menu. And the one you're going to use the most, of course, is New Page. So I'm going to click on this and open up an area for creating content. That's what a content management system is. So I can call this whatever I want to call it. Let's call this my other article or whatever. And whatever I'm going to say in my content, I would type in here. This content can be, let's just say it's an article. I won't take the time to write an entire article, obviously. But you'll get the idea. You'll see that later. If I want to display a web address instead of the article, I would be able to do that by typing that in here. I'm going to leave that for now and show you that demonstration later. I can put other data here. I can title this and a description, maybe some keywords. I want this to be visible, and I'll be the owner of this, so I would type in my name here. Okay, so basically I just stored some content. Again, we can decide how all of this looks. And I'm going to go save. So now I've got the article that you just saw me do, plus one that I had in here previously, and we're going to go take a look at it. So let's go to our content page, and you can see, remember, we left the little arrows and little instructions here, so it looks a little weird, but you can see that this particular area is starting to fill up with my content. Remember, I had one called My Article. I had one called My Other Article. These are all clickable links. And if I go to these, I'm going to click on the one you just saw me create. It's going to fill this page. It's going to populate this page. Here's the title or the name. Remember, this was the CMS name. Here's my actual article here. Remember when I typed that in, it would show here. Again, all this other text here is just instructional text. You could remove it if you want to, and you probably should. And you can see that the content now is actually being displayed. I can bounce between these articles just by clicking on this. Here's the other one that I made. Now let's go back to that administrator page, and you can see that as I create articles, they start to get listed here because I can use this listing to go back and edit these articles, and I can actually move them around by using the up and down feature here. But this first article, the one you didn't see me create, I kind of did this one behind the scenes before the video. Let's click on edit, and you can see that I can open that up and add to it. So if I wanted to add to it here, and then just simply click save, and there's my article. Let's go back to the content area, and when I open up that particular article, there it is. There's my content. And remember, I'm editing this live online. I'm not in a web design program to do this. I'm actually editing content live, a content management system. That's what that means. If I were to search for an article here, let's search for an article that contains the word article, it's going to find and display that particular article. And so I would be able to click on it and go to that other article. I realize there's a lot happening here, and this may seem complicated. Behind the scenes, what's happening is actually complex. What you're doing with these tools is quite powerful. You have the ability to create a system within your website where you can add and store live content and protect it with an administration password, and then have this information appear however you want to. Let me show you one other thing. I'm going to go back to the administrator page. I'm going to show you what that URL feature does. Let's edit this article again. I'm going to click on edit, and I'm going to go ahead and put an external URL in here. This will actually become my content. So I'm just going to type in a domain name here, or a URL, and this will become my content. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to click save, and now when we look at that article, let's go to our content page. Here's our menu. I'm going to click on my article, and now my content actually is that website, because when I typed in the URL, it actually fills the content area with whatever website I wanted. Again, we're just scratching the surface on what you can do with CMS here. And there's even more tools than what I'm covering in this video, because this video is going a little bit long. But this at least gives you an introduction to how CMS works. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and go back to the canvas, and we'll recap a little bit so that you can kind of get an idea of what we're doing here. Basically, it comes down to two areas of the website. The administration page, which is where you saw the listing of the articles. This is where you administrate or manage your content as the owner. And then we have a content page where that content would be displayed. And we happen to be doing it this way. You may find more creative ways to do it. For example, you don't have to have a search field, and you don't have to have the content name here if you don't want to, or the updated date. All of that, that's optional. There's a lot of things you can do here creatively. This tool is really handy to make a menu so that you can search through that content, because as your content grows, this will grow dynamically and this list will become longer. And so obviously this is a great tool. Again, this just gets you started. There are some other tools in 90-Second Website Builder that work with CMS. We'll go into those tools in other videos because they add even more functionality. And now to add another layer of complexity, you can also incorporate the login tools with your CMS management system. That means you could create an entire password protected login area, have that area be your content management system, and that way people could come and see your content after logging in. So obviously there's so much potential here and so much flexibility. You'll just need to get creative in working with those tools. So first, understand the difference between the administrator panel and the content panel, and then setting up your MySQL database. Once you get that set up, you're on your way to working with a very powerful system called the Content Management System here in 90 Second Website Builder.